It's the non-physical parts of ourselves that contribute to the disease, like our thoughts, like our emotions, the way we respond to stimulus. If I'm having repetitive negative thoughts, I'm having repetitive negative chemicals deposited on the cells of my body, repetitive negative information informing my cell how to operate and replicate. So when the cell replicates, it replicates in a downgraded version, and it'll keep doing that until we find disease in the body. So if you can harness your thoughts, you can harness that process, and then you apply it to the areas of your life where we have the most strident responses, like our relationships, like our relationship with money, like our purpose. Most people get so stuck in their purpose, it can make them sick, or not finding their purpose, or thinking they don't have one. The world behind your eyes really does create the world in front of it. Finding out what it is that you're creating, you can tell that just by your results. That's easy. And so if you're not getting results that you adore, what is it that you can change?
Welcome to the Thought Leader Revolution with Nikki Ballou. Join the revolution. There's never been a better time in history to speak your truth, find your freedom, and make your fortune. Each week, we interview the world's top thought leaders and learn the secrets of how they built a 6 to 7 figure practice. This episode has been brought to you by eCircleacademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nikki Ballou, and we have another exciting guest for you today. She is one of our emerging thought leaders. I am speaking, of course, of none other than the one, the only, the legendary Patricia Loff. Welcome to the show, Patricia.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So tell us your backstory. How'd you get to be the great Patricia?
By accident, probably like a lot of people. I certainly didn't dream of doing what I am doing for a living as a little girl or anytime during the process. What happened was I started getting sick really early in life, and I wasn't getting the results I wanted from conventional medicine. And eventually I was told that I only had 3 to 6 months to live. Prior to that, I studied my brains out. I learned how to read medical research because I thought if I learned enough about cancer and tumor growth and the whole process of how that works, then I could figure out a way to stop it. I did all the alternative therapies and complementary therapies. And, we're supposed to have a good diet and we're supposed to move our bodies and exercise. Well, I was an athlete. I was a top athlete, and I had already had a pretty exceptional diet. But I thought, what if it isn't good enough? And so I went on a very strict macrobiotic diet for 8 years. And in that 8 years, my body continued to deteriorate. So I knew it wasn't diet and exercise that was doing it. If I was already an athlete and I was already eating an exceptional diet and my body was deteriorating, what the heck is going on? What am I missing? I felt like I was doing everything right and getting all the wrong results. And so then the doctors told me I had 3 to 6 months to live, and I'd already been doing everything that I could do, I thought. And so I just accepted it. And I went into that great place of surrender that's so peaceful and doesn't require anything of you. And then 2 weeks to the day after they told me I had 3 to 6 months to live, I got this package in the mail from a neuroscientist by the name of Candace Pert, who outlined one of the major contributors to the disease process. And I got to page 3 of that research, and I thought, this really might be something. This is something I can do. And so I started playing around with her concepts. In about 3 weeks, I could feel a difference in my body. And later on, scans started to show that I wasn't having the regular rampant tumor growth that I usually had in the years previous. And they were starting to shrink and disappear. And so I continued doing that. And in about 18 months, I was free and clear of all tumors and any sign of disease whatsoever. So then I went on. People then started asking me if I could help them do what I did. And I felt entirely unqualified, even though I did it. And that's something most doctors can't do, yet they feel qualified to advise people on what to do for their health. So I went on to study traditional Chinese medicine, and in particular, the specialty of medical Qigong, which is a branch of traditional Chinese medicine. And what I found out when I was studying there is that that piece of information that I got that saved my life wasn't anything new. It's been known for 5,000 years, and it's something we should all be taught in kindergarten, frankly, because it's so simple. Um, and so then once I started studying that and being sure that I had something to offer, I started to help people do what I did. And so far, it's been hundreds of people who have reversed some quite serious illnesses.
So don't keep us in suspense. What is it that you learned?
What is it that I learned? So in conventional medicine, if you look at conventional medicine, if you get something like cancer, they want to kill the cancer cells, they want to remove the cancer pieces, the tumors or tissues or whatever it is that's got cancer in it, but they don't address the incoming contributors to cancer. And so conventional medicine addresses the body, which is the physical parts of ourselves, but it's the non-physical parts of ourselves that contribute to the disease, like our thoughts, like our emotions, like our energy, the way we respond to stimulus. The way Candace Pert laid it out is that every time we respond to stimulus in any given day, and that's like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of times a day, we're producing chemicals that attach to the cells of the body. This is something that most people have heard already, and it deposits information into the cells of the body. That information influences how the cells operate and replicate. So if I'm having repetitive negative thoughts, which most people do, and it's not their fault, it's just the way the mind is programmed. If I'm having repetitive negative thoughts, I'm having repetitive negative chemicals deposited on the cells of my body, and repetitive negative information informing my cell how to operate and replicate. So when the cell replicates, it replicates in a downgraded version of its previous self. And it'll keep doing that until we find disease in the body of some sort. It's not always cancer, obviously. Could be arthritis, could be depression even. So if you can harness your thoughts, you can harness that process. The tricky part is most of our thoughts are subconscious. And so then you have to have access to the subconscious mind. And that's where Qigong comes in beautifully, because there are several ways to access the subconscious mind. Stories, music, meditation. What you want to do is drop the frequency of your brainwave patterns to a state where the subconscious mind is highly influenced. So, and you do that with your thoughts, your emotions, and your energy. And then you apply it to the areas of your life where we have the most strident responses, like our relationships, like our relationship with money, like our purpose. Most people get so stuck in their purpose it can make them sick, or not finding their purpose, or thinking they don't have one, that it can make them sick. So you put all of those pieces together and learn how to apply your influence on all of these areas, and you can come out with a pretty bulletproof body.
That's a lot to process. Okay. So had nothing to do with diet, had nothing to do with exercise, had everything
I wouldn't
to
say
do
nothing, but they are such small players in comparison to the inner process. The part that makes the most chemicals has nothing to do with diet and exercise.
Okay.
But I mean, of course, it's sensible to eat a good diet and move your body. That's what it's made for.
No, 100%. But, I sit corrected. It had everything to do with your inner world, your inner life.
Yeah. The world behind your eyes really does create the world in front of it. And so finding out what it is that you're creating, you can tell that just by your results. That's easy. And so if you're not getting results that you adore, what is it that you can change?
So you jumped into this field because of what you went through, essentially.
Yes.
That's what made this matter to you, right? You went through a crucible.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about, if you were to put this in business terms, right? What's the problem that you're solving for your clients?
In business terms, the problem I'm solving is the part where people get frustrated with themselves about the health results that they want but aren't achieving. And frankly, the health results that we're kind of taught that we can expect from conventional medicine are a downgraded version of what we can really expect. And so people think then if they're not getting the results they want and they have to downgrade it to achieve what's on par with conventional medicine, that there's something wrong with them. It's not that there's something wrong with them. It's just that they don't have all the information they need.
Okay, so who comes to see you? Like, put it for me that way. Like, what makes them go, I got to talk to Patricia?
I get people from everywhere. I get politicians, I get business leaders, I get housewives, I get everybody. Most people have tried a whole bunch of things before they come to know about me or come to see me, and I get them mostly at their most frustrated or when they're approaching what they think is the end of the line, like fourth stage cancer, or a bad back that's impairing their entire life, anything like that.
Have you come into contact with the work of Louise Hay?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So she, in one of her books, talks about having had vaginal cancer and having cured that specifically by shifting her energy and her thoughts. So I'm just wondering, how does what you do compare to what she talks about?
It's probably very close. I just come at it from the standpoint of Qigong mostly these days. There's 5 branches of Qigong. There's the movement that we see practitioners do in the park, and it's very beautiful, and the way they move their body. It's to break up the energy that might be blocked in the body. Breath is another way to do it. Then there's imagination, creativity, intention. Those are the 3 parts that aren't physical that also come into play, and they're the most powerful parts. So Louise Hay probably did something very much like that without even knowing that it was Qigong in origin.
So what's the dent you're looking to make in the universe?
Oh boy, I would love everybody to know that they have way more influence on epic health than they are previously led to believe. You can change so many things without even leaving your house. That's what I would like everybody to know. I would like this to be taught in kindergarten, actually, because
it sounds like it's a pretty good idea to do that, actually.
Yeah. And then, like, if kids grow up knowing this and practicing it, we'd have a whole different world of health, which is, if you look at the statistics, pretty poor, considering that we spend trillions of dollars on healthcare and we're getting worse at it.
I think it's a managed care that's designed to get people to manage their illness. They're not designed to create optimal health, but that's another conversation for another time.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Like Casey Means wrote the book Good Energy, which I just recently read. And after I read that, I'm like, the so-called healthcare system is really a sick care managed system.
Totally. Yeah.
That's all it is. So that's my take on it. So who's your ideal client and how do you go about attracting them?
That's a good question. I've just recently turned my programs online so that anybody can refer to them, because my one-on-one programs just got too full and they just keep getting fuller and there's only one of me. So I just recently went online to offer my programs there. And how do I go about attracting them? I just post good content where people know. I mean, people who have been through illness know when they hear something that's hopeful that it's true. Most people that come to me already have an inkling inside of them that there's something missing, but they just don't know what it is. So when they hear something that is a possibility for them, that's when they jump in. So ideal client, I would say anybody who's frustrated with any results they're getting health-wise, and they know, I know that they know, most of them know that there's a better way to do it. They just don't know what that better way is.
So your one-on-one engagements are full, pretty much. So you're looking for ways to reach people other than one-on-one, basically, right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. So tell me one of your greatest success stories.
I think early on, one of the success stories that I really fell in love with was with an RN, actually, by the name of Darlene. She had inflammatory breast cancer. So she's got access to the greatest and the best in the health world, and she wasn't getting the results that she wanted. They said they could buy her some time with chemo, radiation, and surgery, of course. But ultimately, her life would be shortened dramatically. And so when I first started doing this, I really wondered, like, is this replicatable? Like, is it, was I just lucky, or can it be replicated with others? And so I worked with Darlene for a very short time before she started noticing a difference in her body. And she kept on going with the process and the exercises. And she ended up having no more breast cancer. So this was about, I'm going to say about 15 years ago. It might have been a little bit more than that. And she's free and clear. She's retired. She's happy. She's living a full life, and no recurrences whatsoever of any kind of cancer.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
It seems wild because I think we've been so groomed to accept that it's not, that it can't be. And so then we've expected, like, remission, for instance. Remission literally means cancer is coming back, and yet they celebrate it like it's, a win. And that's not a win. If it's expected to come back, that's not a win. So one of the things in my programs is start to aim higher, like, be ridiculous about it. If you have cancer, it's not just that I don't want cancer, but I want this epically strong body that performs well throughout my life. So aim higher than what you would normally go for. Like, don't think that remission is a win. If you're aiming for remission, you're aiming literally for cancer to come back. So aim high.
I think that's the most powerful thing I've heard you say, aim higher. And I think that applies to more than just health results. Almost all of us aim way too low about everything in life. We could live an epic, beautiful, amazing life full of lots of money, full of lots of incredible relationships, epic health. And we don't. We just settle for crap. For a steaming pile of crap. And aim higher. That's going to be the name of the episode, Patricia. Really good. Well done. Well done. So, and I want to just say this. I was at a conference last week called The Vault in West Palm Beach, Florida. I'm from Canada. So we flew to West Palm. I took my son, I took my lady, and I took 2 of my clients with me. So it was 5 of us there total. And the thing that really struck me was how powerful it can be when someone decides to not settle anymore and to aim higher for their very best life, their very best business, their very best epic health. And epic's a good word. I signed up a client that I met through podcasting who has a program called Live an Epic Life. And it just strikes me that we all need to aim for epic, aim higher.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Thank you.
In my programs, I have relationships, like, how do you have an epic relationship? Because if you don't have an epic relationship, you're sure to be feeding your body chemicals that are going to deteriorate your cells and eventually your health. I have a money module in there. 6 out of 10 illnesses can be traced back to stresses about money. It doesn't have to be that way. And you're right about that when people just aim so low, and the I can't afford it
BS
story is an epidemic. I think it's a health epidemic. So I have all of that in there for that very purpose, that you don't want to be feeding your body the garbage that you were taught. You want to be feeding your body the stuff that you're capable of. What you're taught and what you're capable of, there's a big gap in between that. I grew up with addict parents. What I was taught was available to me was like in the sewer compared to what I'm living now. So what our capacity is what we should be aiming for, not what we were taught. And if you examine your results, you'll get to know really quickly what that gap is. If I'm overweight and I want to be fit and healthy, or fit and strong, if I want a fit and strong physical body, then there's a gap between where I am and where I want to be, and what are the things that I can fulfill? What's the capacity that I can fulfill to get to where I want? And a lot of times for a lot of people, it's just sliding back to that comfort zone of pleasure instead of ignoring, in the moment pleasure and striking out for fulfillment. Epic fulfillment is what I would say.
Yeah, it's a good word. Epic fulfillment. Yeah, I got to tell Xander. Xander Sprague is the name of the man with that program who's become my client. He's awesome. Epic. How to live your epic life. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah, you should meet Xander. He's a cool dude. He's a really, really cool dude. I think you guys would have a lot in common in terms of what you talk about. Okay.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. So, Patricia, I'm going to just put my thought leader hat, because I work with a lot of thought leaders and experts who are doing really, really cool stuff. And it's not every day that I come across one like you who I think really has the chops to go like full on world-renowned level thought leader. So I'm going to just give you a couple of thoughts, and then I'm going to ask you the other questions. And we can chat about this more kind of offline if this resonates with you. And I know it's going to resonate with you. Number one is, one-on-one and online are not the only two options you have available. For you to reach more people and frankly make a ton more money, there's other options. So option number one is one-to-many group coaching. Option number two is go within corporations and offer them to this as a means of employee satisfaction, employee engagement, and helping them deal with employee issues. Because believe me, there's a lot of corporations that are going to love this from that point of view. Two is you got to speak and do keynote talks as well as other talks, because they'll bring people into your one-to-many programs. I don't know if you have a book or not, but you ought to have a book or two about this. And I don't know if you have your own podcast or not, but you ought to have your own podcast and you ought to go on a bunch of shows. So I'll talk to you offline about what you can do about all of that stuff. But I think you ought to be reaching probably 1 million, 2 million people easily a year with the work that you do. I think you ought to directly work with at least tens of thousands. And I think you should be making somewhere between 2.5 and 20 million a year. So there you go.
I like your thinking.
Yeah, me too. I'm good at this. So listen, as an emerging thought leader with a desire to make a big dent in the universe, what's getting in the way of you scaling and reaching as many people as you ought to be reaching?
I think the preparation of the groundwork, for starters. I do some speaking, and I have worked with some corporations. That definitely could be bigger. And just figuring out the online program technical stuff and all of the ins and outs of that is really what's occupying most of my time at this point.
Well, run with the online program. I think you're halfway through that process. So see it through, and kind of like your 10x leap will be doing these other things that I suggested to you. And there's a few thoughts that I think will totally get you there. Okay, as we get toward the wrap up end of this, what frustrates you the most that you're not yet a household name?
Oh, geez, is that frustrating? I think the thing that would frustrate me the most is that still by far most people don't know how to do this. They don't know how to run their own health. And it's so simple to do. So that's the frustrating thing. And then seeing so many people suffer just kills me. It just kills me. People talk about their health, and mostly it's bad, and it just doesn't need to be so. When people first started asking me to help them, I was nervous about it because that's a big responsibility. And I would say no because I felt unprepared. And then it was like I got kicked in the gut, as if the universe was saying, like, you've found out this, epic information that saved your life. Now what about her? And what about him? And what about the other guy? You're going to say no to them? So it was as if I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, I got it. I totally got it. So what's next for you?
I'm sorry?
What's next for you?
I think just some of the things that you outlined as well. Once I get this online program set up, do more podcasts. I do usually a few a month, and more speaking. I'd like to do more speaking, and maybe the corporate world. I probably haven't looked at that enough. So much of the stuff that you were talking about. Oh, and the book, of course, which is also being written as we speak.
Good stuff. So if people want to find out more about you, your online programs, etc., what's the best way?
PatriciaLoff.com. there's a little button that says get started. They can watch a free masterclass, and they can find out exactly how the process works from there, and sign up appropriately after that.
patricialoff.com. All right.
You got it.
So, Patricia, we end off each episode by asking you, our guest expert, what are your top 3 expert action steps? These are your 3 best pieces of advice to help my listener take their level of life and make it that much more epic. What say you?
My top 3 action items would be watch your thoughts. When you start watching your thoughts, you'll be able to identify which thoughts are negative. When you find a negative thought, and you should find them really quite quickly, and you'll probably find they're repetitive, that's normal. So it's nothing wrong with you. But then practice stopping the thought. Just tell it no, tell it stop, tell it whatever it is that you need to do in order to interrupt it. Because when you interrupt the thought, then you're interrupting the chemical process and the information going to the cells of your body. And now a lot of people are going to say, replace it with something positive. We say, don't replace it with something positive. Don't replace it with anything. Just stop it and let the space be the way it is. Because what happens when you let the space be and don't try to shove, your version of downgraded positiveness into its space, you open up, you leave the space blank. And when you leave the space blank, your true nature bubbles up. And your true nature is really joy. So when you start stopping these negative thoughts, it'll only take a few weeks, and you should notice that you've got a considerable amount more joy than you had previously. So that's number 1. The next one is watch your emotions, like what triggers you, what makes you judge, what pisses you off on a repetitive basis, and then start recognizing how long you stay in that spot. If you're staying in that spot for more than 1 second, you're captured by the past. So if you can reorient your action or your emotional trigger, whatever it is, if you're triggered and you stay in there for more than 1 second, you can just ask yourself, do I have to feel this way? And as soon as you say that, that impact of that emotion is over. So interrupt your negative thinking, interrupt your negative emotions. And then the next one I would say is start to look at, are you fulfilling the capacity of your humanity in the way that was gifted to you at your birth? And most people will find that there are large swaths of their life that aren't fulfilling their capacity or that aren't being fulfilled. Am I exercising my intellect to the fullness of my capacity? Am I exercising my relationships to the fullness of their capacity? Am I exercising my body to the fullness of its capacity? Am I exercising my money story to the fullness of its capacity? Am I fulfilling my purpose? Get on board with a few of those things, or at least recognize where the gaps are and start moving towards the top end of your capacity.
Honestly, these are 3 excellent expert action steps. I'm writing them down as you're sharing them with me. Listener, Patricia Loff, an emerging thought leader, is the real deal. I highly recommend you go to patricialoff.com and you take advantage of what this incredible thought leader has to offer. And if you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor, give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review. The more likes, ratings, and reviews we get, the more of the right people find out about our podcast, and it grows. And Patricia, give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review. Go to the podcast and do that. I'm going to be asking every single one of our guests to do this from now on, because I got a feeling you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. So let everybody know about that. That'll help us with our efforts as well. So would you be willing to do that for us?
I'm happy to do that, of course.
Awesome. And listener, make sure that you share this with someone who needs to hear this message. There's probably someone in your life right now that's struggling with less than epic health, less than epic thoughts about what's possible for them given that so-called health diagnosis. You might be saving a life. You never know. You might be saving a life by sharing this episode with somebody. So make sure that you do that. Patricia Loff, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
You bet. And that wraps up another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution, another emerging thought leader segment. And to find out more about today's guest, the one and only Patricia Loff, go to the show notes at thethoughtleaderrevolution.com or go to the notes at any app on which you may listen to this episode, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Audible, YouTube, Rumble, or what have you. Go do all that and make sure that you take a deep dive into Patricia's work and what she stands for, because I believe if you do that, you will profit for it. Your soul will profit for it. And you'll feel better about your capacity as a human being. The one thing that I'll say for myself that she said that really touched me was aim higher. Aim higher. Because I was at this conference last week, The Vault in West Palm Beach, Florida. And the message that hit me was to aim higher. I've been playing too small everywhere in life. And now to come on a podcast and hear it, that's like God trying to get my attention as far as I'm concerned. And I hope that's doing the same for you. Until next time, goodbye.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.